Good evening, everyone. It's now about 7 p.m. This is Owen Sound City Council, January 13th, 2020, first one of the new year. We haven't been here for a month, so it's going to be sloppy, I bet. We are moving into the open session. We had a closed session meeting this evening beginning at 6:40. Council reviewed the minutes of the closed session of Council from December 16th, 2019. And Council reviewed one matter regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual respecting a public appointment to the Owen Sound Municipal Non-Profit Housing Corporation and the Owen Sound Housing Company. No direction was taken. Number 4, calling for additional business. Maybe go staff first. Seeing none, okay. Council? Councillor Thomas?
Yes, Your Worship. Later this evening, I'll be making a shameless plug for this beautiful calendar put out by the Tom Thompson Art Gallery that I think everyone in Owen Sound should own a copy of. But that's later.
Okay, we look forward to hearing what you have to say in a little while. Anyone else coming down this way? No, going that way. Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2 items tonight. One is the railings at the Bayshore Community Centre, and another one is on traffic detours.
Good, thank you. Councillor Tamming.
I was at a reception at the Tom this past weekend for Aaron Laurie, and I plan to just update the community a bit on what they're doing there. So 2 plugs for the Tom tonight.
Good. Thank you. And I'll have a couple of matters that I attended. Number 5, disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Through your worship, I would like to declare pecuniary interest with agenda item 14B relating to the application for demolition of the St. Mary's Rectory due to the employment of a family member.
Good, thank you. You about to hit your mic? Oh, okay. You're psyching me out. Oh, I see where you're going. Number 6, confirmation of minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thomas, that the minutes of the closed session of the regular council meeting held on December 16th, 2019 as printed be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. 6B.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thomas, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 16th, 2019 as printed be adopted.
And all in favor? That is carried. And number 7.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thomas, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
Thanks. All in favor? That is carried. So we're now in Committee of the Whole. Number 8 on our agenda, we have no public meetings. At number 9, we have no deputations or presentations. At number 10, public question period. If there's any member of the public that wishes to ask a question of council, now would be the time. I'll get you to step up, push the little, it's probably a purple button there that will turn on the microphone. And then I'll get you to state, there we go, get you to state who you are, where you live, and ask your question. Thank you.
Your Worship, councillors and staff, my name is David Walton, and I'm the chairperson of a group of concerned citizens called the Climate Action Team of Grey Bruce Owen Sound. We want to commend you for adopting the resolution to have city staff prepare a report on how the city can mitigate and adapt to climate change. Chris Robinson's adaptation study and hiring a climate change, adaptation, and mitigation counselor are also very positive steps. And on a personal note, I want to thank each and every one of you on council for standing up for public office. It's a huge commitment, and I've never done it myself, so I have to assume it's mostly not fun. Maybe you have some fun moments. CAT BGOS started in May, right after the screening of, last May, right after the screening of the Resilience film at the Roxy Theatre. Since then, we have met regularly and have formed the following committees. communications, waste management, renewable energy, bicycle transportation, youth, and electric vehicles. Each committee has a particular focus that works towards reducing emissions and lessening the impact of climate change. We realize that individually we can and must each do our own part. We also need all tiers of government to take action. Last year, we hosted 4 public educational events, including Grey County Planners, Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, and Owen Sound staff, Councillor Scott Gregg, and Owen Sound Waste Watchers, community members, and key personnel from Southgate and Meaford. On Thursday, January 23rd, we are hosting another public educational event. The focus of this event is learning about recycling, the challenges and opportunities. Jamie Grimoldby from Miller Waste will bring his perspective from the company that handles the waste in Owen Sound. I'm personally inviting you all to come, and all members of the public. The meeting starts at 7 p.m. at the Harmony Center, January 23rd. Other plans that we have are a renewable energy workshop, a backyard composting workshop, and Guelph counselor/musician James Gordon has what he calls the Emergency Climate Musical, and he's coming to Owen Sound. We haven't got a date for that yet, or the other two. I have 2 questions. You have advertised for the position of Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Coordinator. What is the anticipated start date for this position? And secondly, when will the strategic planning process start, and how will climate action planning fit into the city's longer-term official plan and the 5-year strategic planning process?
Second one's the easiest. We will get a new city manager in approximately May and give them some time to catch their breath and find their way around the building, and then we'll be looking at strategic plan probably in the fall of 2020.
Okay.
We have 4 pillars in the strategic plan currently. One of those pillars was the environment. We've checked off a lot of the things that were on that list, and we'll be renewing that official plan. I'm very confident we'll be renewing it with the same 4 pillars, and the environment will be an important part of it, and we will update it from what it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a blur. With regard to your first question, which was that we've advertised, we have not advertised yet, I hope. We have set in our budget for 2020, which has not been finally approved, but we've basically didn't kick it out of the budget, some money to hire that person. There is a report tonight on hiring that person and going ahead. Depending on the result of that motion tonight, then council or staff would be starting fairly soon after that report is approved to hire somebody.
Okay, so you don't have an actual anticipated start date yet?
Don't have a start date yet. We don't know, well, we'll wait for the discussion. No, we don't have a start date. The original discussion around budget was that we would probably do it once we know what we're doing with strategic plan, but given the report tonight, it's been moved up.
Okay.
Good. Does that
Thank
answer?
you.
Good. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to repeat. So, January 23rd, Thursday night, 7 p.m., Harmony Center, a workshop on recycling.
I've been looking into recycling a lot lately, and it's really not very easy to sort out everything. I got some information saying you can't put tin foil in, and I thought that's pretty pure aluminum. It should work really well. Now, you do accept it here in Owen Sound, but that information came from elsewhere. So there's a lot of variance in what supposedly can go in and what's actually done with it. I understand that a lot of recycled stuff ends up just going to landfill anyway, even though we're trying to do our best and put it into and having it sorted properly, all those kinds of questions.
Huge questions, yes. Perfect. There was a young woman that did it at the market here.
Yeah, it was a zero waste workshop.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, Christine Hamill.
Good, so she's working with you?
Well, yeah, I work with her quite a bit, actually.
Okay, perfect. Perfect, just making sure everyone's connected.
Yeah.
So you're not duplicating.
Yeah.
That's great. Any
Yeah.
questions coming back? I'm seeing one. Go ahead.
Thanks, Barbara. I might just mention that right now the province is looking to enhance that recycling program by transitioning it from Stewardship Ontario to producer responsibility. it's not something that gets done overnight. It's probably anywhere from 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
We're still early on, but our manager of environmental services does bring us almost seemingly quarterly reports to keep us abreast on how that transition is going. And that's part of what you're referring to tonight, in terms of who this municipality recycles this one does not, they do this over here, and there's a lot of inconsistency. So the province is looking at improving that, and that's all part of that transitioning that's going on right now. So there's a little bit of unknown, and there will be for a couple of years yet on that.
That's where all the other tiers of government have to come in. Okay? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Yep, going down that way, go ahead.
I just want to say that it would be a shame if this council felt that unless other tiers of government are moving, that we can't do anything. I've heard from many newcomers to the area, they are shocked, for instance, that we don't do anything with compost and that we still allow single plastic use. So I just want to, you'll have receptive ears from a lot of people at this meeting. And if the answer is we got to wait till some master plan is generated the next 2 years from Queen's Park, I think that would be an unfortunate duck, not an intentional duck, an inadvertent duck. And so I urge you to keep pushing.
Yeah, well, and that's one of our, individual efforts we're going to do, like get backyard composting happening at least. And there are lots of things that can happen, and they don't have to cost a lot of money.
Just to reply further, Councillor Tamming, the province started consulting in late November, early December. I can't remember what the stakeholders on their plan. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Number 11, correspondence received for which direction of council is required. You will see, council, that we have received some information from City of Owen Sound, of all people, with regard to official plan review. This is, there, we've got it in front of us. This is the official plan launched tonight of the municipal comprehensive review of the City of Owen Sound's official plan. The official plan contains the goals, objectives, and policies intended to guide land use development and growth in the city over a 20-year time horizon. Provincial Planning Act requires all municipalities to update their official plan to ensure conformity with applicable planning legislation. The Owen Sound official plan review process will address changes to provincial and County of Grey policies, while also assessing challenges and opportunities associated with key issues in our community, such as housing choice, environmental sustainability and climate change, transportation, land use, and design. The official plan is a tool to promote the health, safety, and quality of life for the residents of Owen Sound and guides physical growth within the context of economic, social, and environmental considerations. All public works and bylaws passed by the city or any community must conform with the official plan. Since the adoption of our current official plan in 2006, a number of studies, strategies, and planning documents have been prepared or initiated by the city that provide direction for future growth and land use. Recent studies include the Commercial Policy Review and Recreation, Parks, and Facilities Master Plan. The official plan affects everyone in Owen Sound. Involvement of all community members is strongly encouraged. A number of community stakeholder sessions and open houses will be held in the coming months. The first community engagement session is scheduled for March 4th, so we'll have more information in the next approximate 6 weeks going to that March 4th date. To provide additional opportunities for input, an online survey has been prepared and will be shared through the city's website and social media platforms. Staff will be updating the city's website to provide details and opportunities for the public to engage through the process. A presentation summarizing the approach and timing for the official plan process will be presented at the Community Services Committee meeting on Wednesday, January 15th. A visioning session with council or for council will be held prior to our January 27th regular council meeting. This process is a great opportunity for all members of the community to participate in the development of a key tool used to guide future decision-making in Owen Sound. So this is really with strategic plan, but this more importantly is the official plan comprehensive review will be coming. So we encourage everyone to get involved. Comments, questions? Go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship. I have a question generally about the online surveys that are sent out to obtain public input. I've seen a few, and I'm assuming as we move forward in reviewing our plans that this is a tool we regularly use. My question is, who creates the online survey? Is it a standardized template? How is it actually, how does it evolve? That's the question I'd like to ask.
Ms. Coulter, would you have the answer?
Through you, Your Worship, the survey was created following a kickoff meeting between the consultant that was hired to undertake this project together with city staff. So it was a collaborative effort, the consultant and staff. It's the first tool for input, so there will be a subsequent or several subsequent opportunities for input. But if the clerk would just scroll down a little bit on the poster, up. You'll see the brand in the top left-hand corner. So a little bit of information is right on the main page of our website. If you click on that symbol, it will take you to a bit of the background and then 3 or 4 key questions to start off this official plan process.
Through Your Worship. So if members of the public review the questionnaire, or any questionnaire, and they feel that there are questions not asked that they would like on that questionnaire to obtain different input, is there a process for them to actually bring that information forward just to enhance the use of the tool?
Through you, Your Worship, the 4th question is, please share any other comments on important issues that should be considered in the city's official plan policy. So there's a 4th kind of open-ended question. If you'd like to receive updates, you can sign up for updates. And then there's also an email link on the website so that if you read anything and it's not clear or you have questions, you can just click right there on that email. You're not looking for a staff name or a consultant name.
Ms. Coulter, anything else you wish to add, or maybe you covered some of it, but...
It's just the beginning. Planners really get excited about our official plan. It is the principal tool for implementing the provincial policy statement. As you mentioned in your summary, Your Worship, all city works as well as planning decisions are to be consistent, so it really is an important planning tool, and I would invite people here tonight, people watching at home, and the community to ensure that you make sure your voice is heard through this process.
Great, thank you. If I could have someone move receipt of the correspondence that we've received. Councillor Hamley?
I would move that we receive that for information purposes.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're down to number 12A on the agenda, and that's a report from Mr. Ritchie with regard to possible actions to deal with climate change.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've lost some of my thunder between the question and Ms. Coulter's discussion, but I will carry on anyway. The title of this report is Possible Actions to Deal with Climate Change. In December 2019, a group of concerned youth presented a deputation at Council on global warming and climate change. Council asked staff a report detailing actions the city might take to deal with climate change and how the city could meet the United Nations emission targets. The issues of climate change and how best to adapt to and mitigate that change are complex. The solutions and actions that may be taken are varied, and there are many voices to be heard and considered. I do not have a background in environmental science, but I am a concerned citizen, and I have 20 years working in municipal administration. My goal this evening is to provide Council and the citizens of Owen Sound a path forward that will stand the test of time and contribute to climate change mitigation. Quoting former Vice President Joe Biden, "Don't tell me what is important to you, Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what is important to you. In the 2020 city operating budget, council has approved $105,000 toward climate change initiatives. That commitment tells me that this council is committed to climate change action. The primary purpose of a municipality is to provide services based on the needs and priorities of its residents. To ensure our residents' priorities are continually strived for, they must be embedded in the city's hierarchy of plans. The city's official plan is scheduled for review and update in 2020, and this evening I am recommending to council that the strategic plan also be reviewed this year. The strategic plan provides the long-term vision and goals of Owen Sound's residents. That vision and those goals should be established through community input gathered at a combination of public meetings, working sessions, or online surveys. One of the pillars in the current plan focused on the environment and had realistic actions to be accomplished in a 5-year period. Over the past 5 years, much progress has been made and many have been accomplished. In 2015, the community was not as conscious of climate change as it is today. And I have no doubt that the new objectives under the environmental pillar will reflect that, and the community will prioritize actions that can be taken to achieve success. The official plan is the document that ensures future planning and development will meet the specific needs of the community. One of the areas of focus for the official plan update will be on climate change and environmental policies. Public input, including the development community, will be important to ensure the official plan meets the needs of this community. I cannot overstate the importance for all concerned citizens to take part in the updates of these two plans in 2020. It will take some time and some commitment to do so, but this is the time to be heard, to listen, and to have a say in what Owen Sound will be moving forward. As I stated earlier, Council approved $105,000 toward the Climate Change Initiative. A Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Coordinator would provide guidance and a staff resource to Council and the public through the official plan and strategic plan reviews. They would direct, coordinate, plan, implement, and monitor all aspects of the climate change initiatives that come out of those plans. That position would liaison with other levels of government, including the federal, provincial, county, other lower tiers, and agencies on climate change. Therefore, Your Worship, the recommendation is that Council endorse the strategic plan review be undertaken the summer of 2020 and approves the recruitment and hiring of a climate change adaptation and mitigation coordinator. And I would be pleased, Your Worship, to answer any questions.
Council? Discussion, questions? Councillor Gregg?
I don't have a whole lot of questions, but this is one rule. When we hire someone, we don't have proper say in where they may live, but this is a role when we hire someone. If there's any mechanism that we have in our toolkit to be able to solicit someone to be employed and have a free transit pass or live in Owen Sound or commute by bike or foot, I mean, this just is a role where I'd hate to see us hire someone that lives in Wyerton or Meaford or Williamsford to be our climate change specialist. If you follow me, I'd like just to, it would be great if we had someone that lives right close by and really we can practice what we preach here.
Councillor Thomas?
I'm not sure the climate recognizes municipal boundaries. So to me, it's not as significant. I know that we're constrained by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We cannot tell people where to live, no matter how much we want to. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, Your Worship. I think it's a bold step forward. I think it's well past time that we take some action on this, and makes me happy to make the recommendation.
Other discussion? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Thomas that this is something that Council has already approved in budget, well, semi-approved until the final budget is actually approved. My only thought would be, I would love to see a job description for this position. If that job description was available to come to either Council or committee, just to ensure that we're all on the same page of what we're actually looking for. I think one of the mistakes sometimes we do is we try to do something and take it on, potentially hire someone in a position, And when we don't have that expertise really of knowing what we're looking for, before we even get started, we're already down the wrong path. And I'm just wondering if maybe that is something, if we did do this approval, this is something that could come back to council or committee to review that job description before we do any posting, just to ensure that we all are on the same page and going in the same directions we want to be.
Councillor Merton?
Through your worship, in addition to those comments, sometimes when an individual is hired, excuse me, the expectation is that's the person that's going to do the job. This is a team effort across all aspects of government levels, and this individual will need to be supported by recommendations, by people who have expert knowledge, that that person is part of a larger group of experts who can move this initiative forward. And I think in a job description, it should be clear who this person will need to liaise with to provide additional information and resources so that we put everything in place for success.
Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if either yourself or Deputy Mayor O'Leary can enlighten me on discussions at Grey County level regarding climate change and their initiatives.
That came up last Thursday where we approved, but we approved a report.
There's going to be a task force.
Did we approve a task force or report about a task force?
It's a task force. But
okay.
It's at the early stages. It's certainly not something we can talk about yet.
Except they have approved setting up a task force to deal with it. Councillor Tamming.
Just a question of clarification. Maybe you already addressed that to the city manager through your worship. Is it a contract position? Is there some flexibility that way?
The intent at this time, Your Worship, would be that it will be a full-time permanent position.
And I just want to echo what Councillor Merton said. That is exactly the default, I think almost psychologically, we have when we hire somebody. And I commend Councillor Merton for pointing that out. But I would broaden that. Not only do we not want to point to that person as the person whose job it is, it's also in some level not going to be the job of the 9 people that are representing this city. And I've said this before. The city is going to have to buy in, and by that I don't mean the councillors, I mean the residents of this town. There may be requests for fees, there may be requests for a tax increase to cover some of the suggestions coming out of this. And I'm not convinced the city is going to be ready for it, but it's going to have to be a big, vigorous discussion at some level, and this is just the start. So I just want to caution the city on that.
Other comments? Anyone that hasn't spoken yet? No? Okay. So going back to Councillor Merton and Dodd's concerns, is there a way that we can have a review
To expedite the process, Your Worship, because once we post the position, in all honesty, it's 6 to 8 weeks to get the person coming in. I would suggest we have a operations committee meeting tomorrow night. I could certainly have the job description ready. I have a draft. I can have it there tomorrow night if that is what council wishes, to expedite it. I'm here anyway.
Council indicating yes, good with it. Councillor Greg, you're going to be chairing the meeting.
Well, I will, I mean, I have no problem if council wishes to have that information come forward to the committee, but personally, I have no problem with supporting Councillor Thomas's motion on the table right now. Or on the floor, there's other templates in other municipalities who have hired this role that I've seen just in passing in the last couple of weeks. So I don't think we're rewriting something here. I think there's kind of a template that's in place that staff are able to and probably have already referred to.
Councillor Dodd, were you thinking about you wanting to see the job description before going ahead with this motion, or going ahead with this motion, seeing the job description before it's posted? Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. My idea would have been I'll be honest, we had this discussion at budget. we all voted for it. We had that chance at budget to vote against it at that time. We voted for a budget that we thought was in place. During that time, we made our decisions after 3 days of sitting at budget. Whether you agree with it or don't, at this point, I feel like you sat through 3 days, and if you didn't say anything then and didn't vote against it, what changed? And if that's something changed, then let's have that discussion again about those financial situations. So from my mind, we spent 12 hours, 16 hours in this chamber discussing those items at budget. And so I have no problem going forward with Councillor Thomas's motion. My request would be that as a council, that we also I'll be honest, I don't want a cookie cutter job description that has fit 20 other municipalities. Our municipality is completely different than Southgate or City of Pickering. We're different. And I would like to have the job description viewed by committee and council, so make sure that we're all on the same page. So 3 years down the road comes by, and we have waste watchers come back and say, well, it's great you did this, but you guys, we're over here, and you're doing this over here. And then what are we going to say? Well, we started it, but we're not off on the same foot. We're not doing the same thing that we should be. So I'd like to see that job description come through committee and council, and ask that to be a friendly amendment maybe to Councillor Thomas to ensure that's added in the motion.
Well, I have mixed feelings on that idea. You know, we have one employee here at the city, we councillors, and he's sitting over here next to me, and I certainly don't have any issue with the job description that I expect will be going forward. You know, I could accept that as a friendly amendment. I mean, I could go either way, but if it's you know, if it's something that you feel that strongly about, I think that that would be fine. I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. So with that amendment would be that the job description would come back through committee tomorrow night in the next council meeting, so it's still coming pretty quickly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried with that change from the original recommendation. Thank you. 12B, report from intermediate planner with regard to Southbridge.
Thank you,
Ms.
Worship.
Coulter.
This is an application for site plan approval for a long-term care facility by Southbridge Healthcare Incorporated. The subject property is 3.6 acres in size, and it's located with 121 meters of frontage on the west side of 16th Avenue East between 10th and 16th Streets East. North, we have a commercial plaza. To the west is the future Ann Pet subdivision. East, across 16th Avenue, is the Seasons Retirement Home, and south is the API development, which will include a hotel and commercial development. The lands are designated East City Commercial in our official plan and permit a long-term care facility, and are Zone C2 with a special provision. The proposal is a 160-bed long-term care facility. Sorry, if we could just go to the next slide. Facility in 128 rooms. It's 380 square meters on each floor for a total of 10,270 square meters, or about the size of a Walmart. It's a horseshoe-shaped building. North is pointing up on the map, so the horseshoe opens to the future 14th Street East, which is located on the north boundary of the property. The entrance is temporarily from 16th Avenue East. That entrance will be closed in favor of a future entrance off of 14th Street. There's a significant amount of landscape. There's foundation beds, as well as trees planted along the street edge, along the south and west property boundaries, as well as a secure resident area that is nicely landscaped. There's underground and rooftop stormwater management, and there's a parking area for 101 spaces. There's a loading area with a second entrance at the rear or south side of the property with a service one-way route along the edge or the outside of the property. A significant amount of supporting information has been submitted with the application, including elevation drawings, site plan, landscape, site servicing, traffic impact study, as well as stormwater management. In terms of the provincial policy statement, this seniors housing development is within a fully serviced urban settlement area, will contribute in a positive way to housing options, and is the type of development envisioned by the PPS for the development of strong and healthy communities. As I noted, the city official plan, OPA number 7, designates the property East City Commercial and permits a long-term care facility. The property is also zoned to permit a long-term care facility. The proposal conforms to the official plan policy, and in particular the urban design requirements, and meets and exceeds the required site and building requirements for a development of this type. From an engineering perspective, the stormwater management achieves an 80% removal of TSS, and also plans for a 100-year storm with equal or less discharge in that type of storm event. The property was subject to a holding provision, and there is a capital contribution of $145,000 required to infrastructure that was previously installed by the city. The developer is also paying for the frontage on 14th Street East, contribution to half the road, sidewalk, and street lighting to ensure pedestrian connectivity from the 14th Street side to 16th Avenue, where the bus route is located. The recommendation is, Your Worship, in consideration of the staff report from our intermediate planner, that Council approve the site plan by GM Demert Architect, subject to the conditions in Schedule E, and that you would ask staff to bring forward a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a site plan agreement.
Great, thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor Ketpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the director. At the one end of the building, there's a square that says hydroseed. Is that a green space area that's created for aesthetic purposes, or?
Yeah, yes, it would be a green area.
Okay. I'm happy to move the recommendation, and glad they are considering including some green space in all of this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Pam. 12C, Ms. Allen, I think tax collector.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an annual report to authorize the interim tax levy, which will be based on 50% of the total 2019 taxes billed for each property. Also, this would add any properties that were not on the roll, so they were added to the tax roll in 2019, and that Council authorized that the interim bill payment be due on February 28th and April 30th of 2020.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd pass it. Sorry. It has been a month. I hadn't moved the recommendation.
Thanks. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So Ms. Allen, installments will be February 28th and April 30th, I see. So everyone can start to plan to. Taxes are always going to be collected. Thank you. 12D, I think Ms. Coulter again, with regard to 8th Street Water Reservoir.
Thank you, Worship. In 2015, Council initiated a process in accordance with your land sale bylaw to sell the 8th Street, the former 8th Street Water Reservoir. At the time, the property was appraised for $200,000. It assumed, the appraisal assumed that the city would be responsible, not a purchaser, for the removal of the reservoir. The lands were sold to a numbered company represented by Edward Lee for a cost of $87,000, with the developer being required, as I noted, to remove the reservoir. The developer moved forward to obtain approval through consent to create 12 new residential lots, to build 12 townhouse units, and also obtain site plan approval. The consent conditions as well as the site plan approval conditions were never satisfied, and the consent has now lapsed. The agreement of purchase and sale provided the city with an option to repurchase the lands between the second anniversary of the sale up until the fourth anniversary of the sale at the same price as you had originally sold it. So the purpose of this report is to receive council's direction on that option. The developer as well as staff have expended significant time and resources in obtaining the development approvals that are in place. As well, the development as it was proposed seemed to be compatible with the surrounding residential neighborhood. Council has several options, and those include repurchasing the property at the former sale price, that you would postpone a decision for an additional year, allowing the developer another year to move forward with your plans. That would still allow you another year in which to exercise your options, or determine that council doesn't wish to reacquire the lands and exercise the option. The developer was contacted by city staff respecting their plans for the development of the lands. Mr. Lee got in touch with Mr. Ritchie, and he advised that he plans this year to move forward with the development of the lands. So, Your Worship, we're asking that council would provide direction with respect, that council requests that the matter be flagged for follow-up in November or December of 2020. So staff are recommending one additional year for this developer to move forward.
And that's basically the choice number 2 on the list of 3. Good, thank you. Discussion. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation. That'll give the developer some time.
Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Kepke.
Question to the director. The individual, do they have to go through Committee of Adjustment again for the same approvals and pay the same fees again?
Because the consent lapsed, they have 1 year after receiving approval to meet the conditions and have their deed stamped. They didn't do that, so it's almost like an administrative consent, but they are required to pay the fees again.
Other questions? Seeing none, going to call the question then. All in favor? That is carried. 12E, Mr. Kafalis, I think, with regard to coldest day of the year.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Your Worship, staff is seeking approval from council to allow organizers to use city sidewalks for the coldest night of the year fundraiser walk. Last year, 140 people participated in the event, and approximately $28,000 was raised. The event consisted of 2 walks, one of which is 2 kilometers and the other which is 5 kilometers. The reason this is coming back for council's consideration is because the routes have changed from last year.
Mr. Kafalis, did I miss it? Is the date in there?
February 22nd. February 22nd.
You found it, February 22nd? Okay, I'm not finding that, but Councillor Ritchie, or Thomas, sorry.
It seems to me they might want to change the name to the wettest night of the year for this year, but I would be happy to move the recommendation.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So we're all the way down to 12F already? So Ms. Bloomfield, let the games begin.
Thank you, Your Worship. In accordance with policy CRS C37, Council is going to do 2 number draws. The first will be to select seating arrangements, and the second will be to select the order for board and committee selections. After each draw, I would ask that each councillor provide us with their number selection, beginning with number 1. Councillors who are on boards for multiple years have the opportunity to pass on a round of selections during the selection process. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, Councillor Gregg, and Councillor Thomas all have 1 pass, and Councillor Kepke has 3 passes should they wish to use them. The report indicates that Councillor Kepke only has 2 passes, but that did not include her appointment to the police board, which still has 1 year remaining. There's a spreadsheet on the screen, and when a line goes red, that means the board or committee has been filled. Please provide me with time to mark the selections in the spreadsheet before moving on to the next selection. If there are scheduling conflicts and council members need to make changes to their board and committee selections, please let myself or the deputy clerk know of the changes by 4:30 on January 17th. After the selections have been made this evening, we will need a motion to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to appoint council members to serve on boards and committees with terms effective February 1st.
Great, thank you. So I think first Jamie's going to pass around blue numbers. And this is for seating arrangement.
I'm going to you.
So you ready to make the list? Okay, so we're going to do this slowly so Brianna can catch it. Who drew number 1? So Travis drew number 1, so he's going down to Brock's seat.
Yes.
Okay. Who drew number 2? Councillor Tamming. So he's going to Marion's seat. Councillor who drew number 3? Scott Gregg. Over to that side. Who drew number 4? Oh yeah, we jumped number 6. Okay, so you're coming over here, Marion. Number 7.
Over here.
So you're moving down 2. Number 8, Carol. And number 9, Rock.
Still on that side.
So in 1 year, Councillor Hamley goes all the way from the right wing to the left wing. Kind of defensive about that. Okay, we're ready for that next one. So next is coming the white envelopes, and there should be numbers 1 to 8, and that's going to be how we select our committees. I see some head shaking. I see some little smirks. Who drew number 1 this time? Councillor Merton. Who drew number 2? Deputy Mayor O'Leary. Who drew number 3? Councillor Dodd. Who drew number 4? Councillor Thomas. Who drew number 5? Councillor Gregg. Number 6. Councillor Kepke. No. Councillor Tamming drew number 7. Oh, you drew number 8. Well, I was looking at the expression on Councillor Hamley's face, and I just figured that he must have drawn number 8. Okay. So before us, we have the list. It's also up on the big screen. So Councillor Merton, you're going first. Which committee do you choose?
The Owen Sound Nonprofit and Owen Sound Housing Company, please.
Okay. Number 2 is Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Community Services.
Okay. Councillor Dodd.
Community Services.
Okay. Councillor Thomas.
Community Services.
That's a popular one. Number 5, Councillor Gregg.
Operations.
Okay. Number 6, Councillor Kepke.
Community Services.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, that one should be done. Number 7, Councillor Hamley.
Corporate services.
Okay. Number 8, Councillor Tamming. Thompson. Gallery, okay.
The Tom?
Okay. Then we're going to come back 8 to 1, so Councillor Tamming, you're right back up.
Operations?
Okay, Councillor Hamley.
Operations.
Okay, Councillor Kepke.
Operations.
Okay, number 5, Councillor Gregg.
Economic development.
Operations is now closed, economic development. Councillor Gregg? It's up there on the screen. Councillor Thomas, I think you're next.
Economic development.
Okay. Number 3, Councillor Dodd.
Corporate services?
Okay. Number 2, Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Economic development.
So that one's off the list. Number 1, Councillor Merton.
Community Foundation.
Okay, so that comes off the list. Back to you again, Councillor Merton.
Seniors Advisory Committee.
Seniors Advisory Committee. Okay, so that comes off the list. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Pass.
Okay, Councillor Dodd.
Tom Thompson Art Gallery?
Okay. So that comes off the list. Number 4, Councillor Thomas.
Pass.
Number 5, Councillor Gregg.
Accessibility.
Okay. Number 6, Councillor Kepke.
Pass.
Councillor Hamley.
I think I have to take accessibility, and that's all she wrote.
Well, there's
No?
corporate services is still available there.
Well, I'm already on it.
Oh, good point. I think you should take accessibility if
I can take it twice if you'd like. Yeah, okay, I'll take accessibility.
Good choice, Councillor Tamming. Good choice. I think you'll enjoy it. Oh, there's still one more hole there, is it? Councillor, coming back to Councillor Tamming is going to pick the same thing again. Councillor Hamley can't pick it twice. Councillor Kepke, you've got 2 more passes to go, or you can take corporate services.
Pass.
Councillor Gregg, are you already there? No? Corporate services? You've still got a pass to go.
I have a
right?
pass, yep.
So you're passing? Okay. Councillor Thomas?
I have no pass, but I have a conflict as library board meets the same evening as corporate services.
Ooh, what do we do with that in the rules, Madam Clerk? All the pressure's on you. We can take it in trade?
Sure, I'll take that, and Councillor Kepke and I will make a trade later.
Okay. Good, so that covers, everything's in red. So then we just need a motion to approve the selection? Is it on there? Okay, to bring forward a bylaw specifically. Councillor Dodd, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that recommendation to bring forward a bylaw for the committee selection.
Good, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Well, that kind of went by quickly this year.
It did. What happened, like slip and fall and stuff?
So what are we down to 12G, which is the public appointments. Go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, the 2020 public vacancies were determined through the board and committee bylaw. The vacancies were advertised, and application material was reviewed in closed session on December 16th. During closed session, council directed that staff bring forward a report recommending certain applicants for certain boards and committees and for certain terms. During today's closed session, a further application was presented to council for consideration. There are some individuals being recommended for reappointment that are subject to the sunset clause, which means they've been on a committee for longer than 6 consecutive years. Part of the recommendation in the report is to waive the sunset clause for those individuals. I will note that vacancies still remain on the Library Board, DIA Board, and the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and applications are being accepted until January 22nd for those vacancies. In accordance with requirements in the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the vacancy on the Accessibility Advisory Committee has to be filled by an individual with a disability. The recommendation listed for approval on the report is to waive the sunset clause for various individuals and to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to appoint certain public members to boards and committees for specified times as noted in Schedule A to the report.
Great, thank you. So I need someone to move a recommendation with, the recommendation with an amendment that would add Alan Anderson to the Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation and Owen Sound Housing Company. Councillor Gregg, you're moving that?
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. So we're down to 12H. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, anything to report from Grey County tonight?
Nothing tonight, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda?
Through Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening is a report respecting the Owen Sound Emergency Management Plan, minutes for receipt from the Owen Sound Community Fund, the Police Board, and the Festival of Northern Lights, and CJ's Hair Studio received their business license for their relocation to 299 8th Street East. Lastly, there's the council information package. A full listing is available at 13F.
Thank you.
Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13F on the consent agenda dated January 13th, 2020, and further that the recommendations contained in Report 13A be approved.
Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. We go back up there. There is minutes from the Community Fund. Anything to report, Councillor Merton? Go ahead.
Through Your Worship, further to the minutes of December the 3rd, 2019, the name is changing to the Owen Sound Fund. The committee, rather than selecting one specific event for the random act of kindness, has chosen the phrase celebrating kindness in our community. The goal is to inform the community of the Owen Sound Fund and increase awareness in Owen Sound that donations received are gifted locally, granted locally. The committee is developing a 5-year plan to raise awareness, promote, and build the fund. So in advance of the Kindness Week in February, the 11th to 17th, the committee is encouraging anyone who wishes to demonstrate acts of kindness, large or small, to donate to the Owen Sound Fund by dropping in or mailing a check to the Community Foundation office at 946 3rd Avenue East, which is Kearney Lane in Owen Sound, calling the office at 519-371-7203, or going on to the website www.cfgb.ca and selecting the Owen Sound Fund from the drop-down box. We will kindly and with great appreciation accept any donation amount. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm seeing none. Good. Thank you for your report. Oops, microphone. Thank you for your report. Not seeing any questions. Councillor Kepke, Owen Sound Police Board, Police Services Board from November 27th.
Thank you, Worship. Members of council have received the minutes of the November meeting on the Police Services Board, and unless there's anything further or questions in those minutes, I have nothing further to report.
Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, Mayor Boy. I do have one question because I had this circled in the correspondence items, and it comes from the town of Tecumseh regarding 911 missed hours. Is that something that we look at internally here at our own at our own numbers, the numbers coming from town of Tecumseh, with today's modern cell phones, the misdials that they're having to respond to is absolutely crazy. It's nuts. So I'm just wondering, like, is that something that we're looking at here too? I'm not sure what we can do about this, but in this age of cell phones where they should be better than ever, the numbers are awful.
To the councillor, we haven't had any reports from this control center about that, but it's certainly something that I'll ask at the next meeting.
Okay. Councillor Thomas, nothing to report from Festival of Northern Lights from November 5th. It's a long time ago, but...
I did not attend that meeting, Your Worship, but I will say that the festival went off with some panache, and, you know, from my perspective, overlooking the market, I have never seen so many people out walking, despite the lack of snow.
Yeah, it was very well attended. Thank you. So down to number 14A, Councillor Merton, if you want to give us a report, an accessibility advisor. Oh, sorry. Councillor Gregg, did I miss something?
Thanks, Rabbi. I did have one item in the correspondence items that I'd like, item 5, just to be picked out and sent to the Operations Committee. If we could add that to the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. It's regarding the ban of single-use disposable wipes. If the director could note that, perhaps.
Do you want to pull 2 as well? City of Woodstock ban of single-use plastic. It's basically
we kind of already dealt with that.
It's just basically sending a letter to the...
Sure, yeah. Items 2 and 5 to be sent to tomorrow's operations agenda.
Okay. You can also grab them and raise them perhaps as other business. Might be as easy as trying to get staff to maneuver them to get them there. Thanks. 14A, Councillor Merton, Accessibility Advisory Committee report. Thanks.
Through your worship, a public meeting to review the draft multi-year accessibility plan occurred during the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting December 16th. The minutes include comments made, and a motion was made that the committee recommend to Council the approval of the updated multi-year accessibility plan 2019 to 2023. A deputation from Stephanie Stewart, Manager of Community Transportation, Grey County, was provided to the committee, and the minutes included in this agenda provide additional information regarding routes and connections proposed. A survey is available for input at www.greycc.com/GRR, or hard copies are available at the Grey County Admin Building. A staff report from the Director of Public Works and Engineering was received regarding the 5-year capital plan for audible pedestrian signals. Committee members and the public are encouraged to provide suggestions regarding possible future locations of the audible pedestrian signals to the Director, Dennis Kefalis, or the Manager of Engineering Services, Chris Webb. This item will be brought forward to future committee meetings. The committee moved to accept the information provided regarding the mobility transit dashboard statistics for the month ending November 30th, 2019. Based on the minutes provided and this additional information, I'm happy to answer any questions and to entertain a motion to adopt.
So, questions for Councillor Merton? Seeing none, so her motion is recommending for approval the minutes of Accessibility Advisory Committee on December 16th, 2019. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 14B, Community Services, December 18th. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting December 18th, 2019. There are a couple of significant items in these minutes. I'll try and summarize them if the Director can perhaps answer questions from Council afterwards. The Greenwood Cemetery Master Plan, the Manager of Parks and Open Space had a presentation of the draft master plan and 16 recommendations. This draft represented a culmination of a lot of work to date that began with the February 2018 report on the process. We started with an open house to introduce the project and launched the public survey on February 20th, 2019. 14 members of the public attended the public open house, and we had 52 responses to the survey. The project has a neat brand, and for anyone looking for more information, it is right on the city website's main page. Based on all the work to date, the public input, research, and best practices, the 16 draft recommendations in the master plan fall within 3 areas: interment options, administration, operations and grounds, buildings and maintenance. In the interment options, one of the recommendations is, it is recommended that a dedicated section for performing natural burials at Greenwood Cemetery be established, and the bylaw is amended to clarify the aspects of natural burials that are to be permitted. At the December meeting, and currently through an online platform, we are soliciting feedback on all 15 recommendations. Based on that feedback, staff will prepare a report for February to finalize the Greenwood Cemetery Master Plan. Following that, most likely in March, there will need to be an amendment to the Greenwood Cemetery bylaw to establish the exact terms and conditions for the natural burials section. The survey on the draft will be open to February 1st. The survey asks 2 things about each recommendation. Number 1, do you support the recommendation? And number 2, is it a low, medium, or high priority? If you're not able to attend the meeting or want more information, please contact Adam Parsons. The next item was a presentation from Grant Demert and Johan Pappendorf from GM Demert Architects, as well as Mr. Devlin, the building chair for the rectory project at St. Mary's in Owen Sound. The property contains the historic St. Mary's Catholic Church and associated buildings and additions. The original 1871 church exterior and rectory built in 1871 are both included in the designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. The applicant is proposing to demolish the designated rectory and reconstruct a new rectory within the same general footprint, plus an extension to the south. The current and proposed rectory are attached to the sacristy and apse and must be detached from the existing building. In 2018, the applicant retained Robinson Heritage Consulting to complete a heritage impact assessment of the site with focus on the rectory. According to the HIA, the structures on the site were erected as follows. In August of 2019, City Planning and Heritage staff met with the applicant to discuss the proposed demolition of the St. Mary's Rectory. Thereafter, the applicant formally engaged GM Demert to undertake a rectory reconstruction design. On October 29th, 2019, the city provided the applicant and Demert a letter outlining the items that would be required to accompany a demolition permit application for the rectory and heritage permit for alteration to the attached apse and sacristy. The Act requires that specific consultation with the Municipal Heritage Committee, notice and submission of supporting materials be executed prior to demolition or removal of designated structures. City heritage permits are required to allow for the removal and reconstruction of the rectory. It is worth noting that only the building owner can appeal a decision of council in this matter. Mr. Devlin reported that the 7 different congregations from Owen Sound to Tobermory support the demolition proposal. After careful and thoughtful discussion regarding the proposal, the committee recommended the following. Receive the staff report, notice of received required information, consent to the demolition subject to the conditions outlined in the Schedule E to the staff report, endorse in principle the design presented by GM Demert, and notice of consent and with conditions, and update the designation bylaw for the church. The project, as recommended by committee, does propose to construct a glass passage from the rectory to the church. Bricks are proposed to be salvaged from the original rectory and used to reconstruct portions of the new facade and exterior design elements, which is positive. Lastly, nominations for Senior of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, and Youth Volunteer of the Year are open and remain open to February 21st. So many tremendous volunteers in this community. Take the time to nominate someone who you know. And with that, Your Worship, I move approval of the Community Services minutes.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? Seeing none. Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, my buddy. And really well explained and quite an elaborate report, particularly pertaining to the St. Mary's Rectory. My only question on this, or a similar request on a designated building that might come to council, and it could be a building downtown, that a property owner puts a value on remediation or renovating, that's used as the justification to demolish because it's cheaper to rebuild. And it's unfortunate. People, we don't fix dishwashers anymore because it's cheaper to go out and buy a new one. And this is the world we live in. But I'm just concerned with, we're given the value, but there's not a lengthy elaboration on a breakdown of costs or how you get to that value. And it's not distrust of the church. It's just, if there's any similar request on another building came to council and we're just given a dollar value, I just wonder how the dollar value acts as justification for making the decision, if you follow me there. Like, it's an old building, it's tremendously expensive to repair it, but if the owner of Selden House downtown had a new idea, or another building, is there something else the heritage that is asked for? Or I'm just wondering with the one single value.
And I don't want to cut, if this is moving ahead, Councillor, perhaps we can look at that and report back, if it's not in regards to this specific building. Is that possible? Would that satisfy?
And that would be fine. Like, I mean, we don't have money here to be able to salvage the building. It's the parishioners' wish that they move forward with the new building. Nor do they have the money. I'm just, on an ongoing, future-looking lens, if it was a building downtown and it was a sole property owner, how would we weigh that?
I think we understand the concern, and we can see if there is a mechanism to check that moving ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Tamming.
This matter has received some publicity, and I've prepared some written comments. I'll try to be succinct, but I think it's an important issue. I'm a huge fan of local preservation. I bought my law office some time ago. It was where the Wilkinson family lived, I think, for almost 100 years. And I was pleased when city staff approached me and thought it might be designatable as something of historical interest. It is now called the Wilkinson House and can never be demolished. I'll support preservation wherever possible, and I personally tied up an asset to make that happen. I also want to commend the city staff in this case for asking us to give serious pause before allowing the demolition. As staff noted in their report, this would be the first time council has allowed the demolition of a designated property. This is a big deal, and Ms. Cann and Coulter were right to underscore it. That said, I voted at the committee level to allow demolition. My reasons were fourfold. First, not a single parishioner is absolutely insisting that the building should be saved. The RC parish covers a massive area, and the parishioners number in the hundreds, if not low thousands. These are highly committed and involve citizens, and I find it hard to ignore their wishes. Second, I find it very hard to prohibit the demolition of a privately held asset if no money is coming from the city to help them out. That is an indirect form of government expropriation without compensation, and that should give us pause. But third, not only is the rectory a privately held asset, it is also a personal residence for priests, some of whom I assume are elderly. It is not a bar. It is not an old hotel. It is not a store on Main Street. It is a personal home. And if the hand of the state starts in effect to dictate where people live and how, that should give us pause. Fourth, Mr. Neil Devlin is a member of the parish, and he delivered a strong defense of the decision to demolish. But it was a reluctant defense. He said when he joined the parish committee, he was, in his words, determined to save the building. But unfortunately, a $4 million renovation estimate convinced him otherwise. Say the $4 million's high, which I don't doubt, which I have no reason to believe, but say the $4 million is $2.5 or $3 million. No religious organization these days is flush with funds, And again, I was convinced by Mr. Devlin's submissions. So those are the 4 reasons that I personally think in this case it was appropriate to allow it. I don't think there's anybody on the committee, though, who would not be saddened by what's about to happen. It looms over the city. We know it does, the building. And it goes back to 1870. So it's 3 years into John A. Macdonald's first term. So it is a big deal. But for the reasons I just described, sadly and reluctantly, I voted to allow the demolition. And I hope those people that are into city preservation can see this as a necessary exception to the general rule. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will acknowledge that we received correspondence from a Kay Algie of Waterloo and a Jean Hellboom. Councillor Tamming, you're probably going to have to help me with that. H-A-A-L?
Oh, yes, it's a Dutch. Yes, it is a Dutch name. Halboom. Hal.
Thank you very much, of Kitchener. So just to acknowledge that we did receive that correspondence, all of council received it, and it was considered. So I'm going to call the question, which is approval of the minutes. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Leary. We're down to Councillor Gregg with regard to minutes of operations. Owen?
I just allow Councillor Merton to get set. Our December meeting of operations, we received a deputation from Chris Robinson. Chris is a shared resource between the city and the Conservation Authority and is taking part in the program, which I think was funded through a multi-year program through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, if memory serves me correct. He is working, the work that he provided and presented is being done to form an Owen Sound climate adaptation plan. There's all sorts of models, which you likely flip through in the slides, building precipitation data, temperature data, dating back decades and decades and decades. This information will be adapted into a future final plan, which will come to council, but as part of this presentation, you can see how the information is being modeled at this time, information such as rainfall events and its impact on the west side of the city in the stormwater management system. So there's going to be information that the city will use on a go-forward basis. So we received that just for information purposes at this time. We had the November month-end airport report received for information. Report 8B is a resolution to approve the 10th Street Bridge design. The conceptual bridge drawings are consistent with other bridges in the downtown. During review by the MTO of the design, they noted that the conceptual design does not meet the requirements of the Canadian Highway Bridge Design Code and request formal acknowledgement from council of the variation. Essentially, the design code calls for a consistent border alongside the roadway. This has posts that are set back in and creates a little bit of inconsistencies within that consistent concrete barrier. But council, and acknowledging the previous bridges in downtown, we can assume that at a speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour, deviating away from that rather crude highway design bridge warrants approval from council. We had Report 19046, which is a resolution to offer the cost of monthly student passes at $35. In September of 2018, council reduced the cost of a pass from $45 a month to $35 a month. This was done hoping to enhance ridership and to work closely with Georgian College to help keep costs down for students. The city has seen a steady increase in sales to students from 449 in 2016 to 623, which were projected for 2018. Report 1949 contains a resolution to increase the per vehicle charge to $45 from $25 for participating municipalities in the Household Hazardous Waste Program. The $25 fee is based on a maximum load of 54 liters. Exceedances incur a second load fee, which is $25. That rate has been in place since at least 2012. And how we came to the $45 cost is that hazardous household waste receives approximately 2,000 visitors per year, which is phenomenal. This is a great program, by the way. I mean, not to understate the merit of this program at all. We're talking about climate change and impacts in the environment. This is a great program. Receives approximately 2,000 visitors a year, and when calculated into the program, budget costs of $97,000 annually. The actual cost is $45 per vehicle. That's also acknowledging, I think it's a $1,400 administration fee that we applied to the participating municipalities, so that goes into that figure as well. This $45 is program cost recovery. It's not being increased as a profit center. While increases to partner municipalities could impact their participation in the program, any withdrawals would be offset by the reduction in material handling costs and possible reduced wages. And then finally, we have a report looking at garbage tag fees. And actually, I would like to, because we had unanimous votes at the meeting, except for this report, so I might ask, save and accept item 8E. Any questions on those minutes as provided to this time?
So you're going to move approval of the report, save and accept 8E, which will be pulled and voted on separately?
Yep.
Okay. Are you at the end of your report?
Yep.
Okay, can we go back up to, I think it was 8B? I just wanted the engineering, there we go. I just want to clarify, you went through that a little bit quickly. It isn't the bridge that we've approved the design of, it's just strictly the railing, in case that went by a little bit too quickly. So when you think of 8th Street, 9th Street, and former 10th Street Bridge, they've got a nice railing that you can see through, you can see to the harbor. The government's design, the highway design normally is a cement wall that you can't see through. So it is specifically the railing design that we were required to review and approve based on provincial engineering requirements, just that we're confirming that we're going with the railing, not the cement wall. So I just want to clarify that's not the bridge that's getting a final approval, it's the railing. So with that, any other questions? So I'm going to call the question on the report, save and accept 11E that we're going to discuss separately. All in favor? 8E. 8E. Yeah, good. All in favor? And that's carried. So now if we can go back to 8E. Councillor Thomas?
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion to delay this item until the April 27th meeting of Council. I have a notice of motion that I'll be introducing later in this meeting that deals specifically with this item.
Sorry, to what date?
Sorry? I'm asking for a delaying motion till April 27th.
April, okay. Discussion? Councillor?
Well, can there be some explanation why April?
Sure. I don't mind giving the explanation now. I was totally opposed to increasing bag tag fees. Councillor O'Leary even joked about it during the budget talks. And when I saw this come forward after two reports recommended no increase, I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to support that. But over Christmas, I had a little time to myself for a moment, and I started thinking about ways that I might be able to support this. And I'll introduce a notice of motion later on this evening to ask for a staff report looking at the cost of bag tags. In fact, what I came to is I thought that maybe I could support this if we increased the cost of tags to $5 and we use the additional money to create a source-separated organics program in the city. My motion, however, is not exclusive to that idea. I'm asking for an overall report to look at it because I feel that if we're going to take this step, we really need to look at more than just a 25-cent increase in bag tags to bring the program up to paying for itself. I think that we need to really get serious about other things as well in terms of waste management.
So I'm still failing to see why we're going for a 3-month extension.
So I had a discussion with our Director of Operations. I asked how long it might take to examine this issue and bring a report back to Council. 3 months was the time, so that's why I've asked for that. I'm sorry.
That's a key. Yeah. Councillor Merton.
I also agree. I have a concern about the increase in the bag tag fee without further justification, so certainly would appreciate more conversation. However, I think there's another component of this that isn't just about pricing. I believe that we can do better, not by necessarily changing the pricing, but on focusing on helping people actually decrease their own household cost by educating people on what they can do with their household garbage, whether we look at organics, but currently with what they are doing. So it's more than just increasing costing, it's about informing, educating, and all of us trying to reduce. There are a number of citizen groups in our city who have practical ideas about how we can reduce the amount of waste each and every household that we put out for pickup. I would extend an invitation to these citizen groups to actually, not literally, but bring your garbage to City Hall. In other words, demonstrate to us an example of household waste and what they would recommend that the everyday person, average household could do to make a difference now. By coming to council meeting to present, should council agree that education and informing people might be helpful, the advantage is that it is taped, it is on YouTube, so that it's not just in a committee meeting where there isn't an accurate record that people can go into and actually learn from. I know we can do better. I know people want to do the right thing, and we all can learn more about what we can do. So at this point, a delay may be appropriate if we could also move along informing, educating, and demonstrating how all of us together can reduce the household waste.
Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, everybody. I'd like just to be able to speak to both of those comments, both well-deserving.
Just before we go, we've got a motion that is just to delay it, and we're really speaking to the motion. We're not speaking to the meat and potatoes of what's being delayed until it comes back up. So it's really...
And we can only speak to the
it's really,
date
I'd let you go
of
further
tabling, right?
Yeah. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. To the Director, when the costs were proposed, the $2.50, $2.75, $3, you had given kind of an equaling out of the $2.75 for this year, close to equaling out. Does this 3 months obviously affects that, does it not?
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, it would. I mean, all the sales that would go ahead between this period would definitely have an impact on the overall revenues being generated on an annual basis. To what extent, you figure a quarter of it, so it would have an impact, but not a great impact.
Okay, any other discussion on the adjournment of this, the delay of this? Call the question, all in favor? Oh, sorry, John, were you up or down? Sorry, up, okay, so that's carried. One opposed, I think. One opposed. Good. So we've covered, back to you, Marion, you had a question there.
Yes, further to Councillor Merton's comments, the action group that was here, is there not an education process taking place in January, and they're trying to get people to be more aware of what can be recycled? And I know you want to have something in front of council, in front of TV, but maybe there's other venues than at a council meeting? Maybe a show on Rogers or something, that an article in the Sun-Times, or reach people?
Yeah.
Through your worship, the principle is informing the public. I had recommended a certain medium. I'm certainly open to other suggestions. I think the importance is the demonstration and the education and the support for people to make the change.
I'm a little bit with Councillor Kepke in that this is a meeting to conduct the business of the city, and there's really better places to educate people in a sense than here. I think there's ways to do it, but I'm not sure it should be while we're conducting the business of the city. Something new, something
I
different?
can add to that. We do have a member on staff who has shown great enthusiasm on working on projects just like what you're describing. She has shown me different ideas that she's got. She's got different calendars from other municipalities that they've put out through the year to help inform and communicate different mechanisms to the public, and we've increased or provided a little bit of enhanced funding through the budget this year for some of those initiatives. So some of what you are referencing there or speaking to, I think you're going to see some information come from staff in due time too.
And just publicly to add to that, I have spoken to her, and she's certainly willing to go to community groups, excuse me, and speak to them about the program and what can be recycled and some good ideas that way. So anybody who has or belongs to a community group, she's certainly willing to go and speak to that group.
Okay, so I'm going to move on here. Next, we've got minutes of the Tom Thompson. We did vote in both pieces. Yes, we did. I'm going to move to the Tom Thompson Art Gallery December 9th meeting.
Thanks, Your Worship. We had a report from the chair regarding our Ontario Arts Council funding for the gallery, and again this year there was a reduction. There was an 8% overall reduction that all arts organizations in Ontario received as a result of budget cutbacks from the provincial government. And then we received a further 17% reduction in our grant because we're playing it too safe with our exhibitions. And that in part is with our focus on our local collection and bringing things out of the archive so members of the public can see them. The Ontario Arts Council perceives that is too safe. They'd like to see art that's a little more avant-garde. However, what I would say is the committee is fairly clear on the fact that our art brings people into our gallery. If we look at our Goldie Mask exhibit, which also was playing it safe, which drew in hundreds of people who have never been in that gallery, I certainly stand by, well, thousands, you could be right. I certainly stand by the direction we've been taking in terms of exhibitions at the gallery. One of the other issues is they recognize that we're still in transition because we do not yet have a chief curator and director, and I'm happy to report that this year we'll be working on that. The wheels are in motion now to start looking for a director and chief curator for the gallery. I would say that's just about all there is to report from the gallery. I might mention that the gallery does have a lovely 2020 calendar available, Your Worship, that is comprised of works of art from Footprints in Time, the current exhibit that's on at the gallery, which has been extended to the end of February now because it's so popular. It is all works from the permanent collection, and if you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to get down there and see it. And if you can't get down there and see it, you could have this calendar for $20, and you could see it all the time. So, Your Worship, with that, I will move approval of those minutes.
Good. Any questions? Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Rabbi. I would just, there's a paragraph here that's terrific. We have had an awesome year. Gallery attendance, end of third quarter, September 19, is up 26% over same period last year. There has been an increase of 46% in the number of active volunteers since March 18. Movie attendance is up about 700 patrons over last year. These organizations that are within the province, I'd love to have them be able to provide us some information that exceeds those kinds of statistics with these avant-garde collections that they're referring to. I would welcome that to be presented, in fact, and I'd love to measure it.
Councillor Thomas, that the calendar there really is pretty special. I think it's 13 months going from
Sorry, did I mention the calendar, Your
De-
Worship? I
December
wasn't
all the
sure if
way
I'd
through.
gotten that out there or not.
Every picture is stunning, and then I took some time and went to the show that's hanging on the walls at a noon hour when there's nobody around. It took my time, and there's even more amazing pieces that, like our collection is unbelievable, and when you see it hanging on the wall, and especially when you see some little stickers on that say "First Time Hung," thanks to someone that's donated money to get them framed and covered. It's really an amazing show that's there, and John's going to talk about the new one that opened, if you want avant-garde that's not safe, that opened on Friday. So we'll call the question. All in favor of approval of those minutes? Carried. We have number 15, no matters that are postponed. We have no motions which notice was previously given. Discussion of additional business, Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to take a moment to mention this beautiful calendar put out by the Tom Thompson Gallery this year. It's the 2020 calendar, available for $20, and it contains wonderful plates from the current Footprints in Time exhibit, which I think you've seen, Your Worship. You may have mentioned that. In any case, all joking aside, the calendar is $20, and the money that's raised from the calendar goes back into art education in our community for our students. We have hundreds and hundreds of students through the gallery every year taking part in our educational programs, and that's what this calendar is supporting. So if you haven't got one yet, you still have time. Thank you.
That's great, Councillor Thomas. Did you want to share with us where they could get one?
Well, in fact, they can get these calendars right here at City Hall, downstairs at the SOS counter, I think, at the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, and by gosh, they could even contact me and I could probably scare one up.
Perfect, thanks. He'll deliver, I think is what he was saying. Thank you very much. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Worship. A couple items tonight. The first one is the railings at the Bay Shore. I've been contacted by a few frail individuals who in their section, when they went to go to their seats recently, discovered there were railings there, and they just wanted to extend appreciation for those railings and to also let you know that they feel much more confident going up and down the stairs, and thank you so much for those railings. My second item is traffic detours, and over the Christmas vacation, we had a lot of visitors to the city. Some were here for the first time. Some have been returning to visit their families. I belong to a group that there are a lot of elves that belong to that group, and the elves felt that we needed to receive a Christmas card about the detour routes. So they served the fellow in the big red suit, and I was presented with this Christmas card that I'd like to pass on to the director of Public Works and whatever else you do, engineering. So I have to stand up to show you this card because it's quite unbelievable. Whoops, upside down. There we go. So just some suggestions for signage, and some of them felt that this is the way they felt when they came to the city, but others certainly were able to make their way around. I didn't hear of anyone getting tickets, which was good, but I did want to pass this along and just show you the creativity of some of the elves that wanted to bring my attention to this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Kepke and the elves. Councillor Tamming, Gallery.
Just briefly, Your Worship, I did want to just draw attention to two exhibits that are going on right now at the gallery. One is by Erin Laurie, called The Swirl. She's a delightful young woman. This is her first public exhibition. It is absolutely stunning, the landscape she does with acrylics and oils, and get thee to the gallery for that. And also Tony Miller, who will be giving a talk sometime in mid-February. Deep roots in the black community in Owen Sound, and if you check out his paintings, they evoke a different era in Owen Sound that reflects his heritage. So again, Tony Miller, and the gallery is on a roll, and I invite people to sign up and become members, and perhaps they could buy a calendar as well.
Great, thank you. The new show's overwhelming, isn't it? It's like stunning. Thank you. I did two things. I laid low for most of the holidays, and fur grew over me, or something grew over me. I don't know. It fell off.
White.
Last week I attended the new O'Share location, which is where Salvation Army's thrift store used to be, so at the end of Carney's Lane. Beautiful, beautiful room. It's been done very nicely by Barry's Construction, who did all the renovations in there. Kiwanis donated $100,000 to redo the kitchen, and that was the problem in the Harmony Center. People from the Harmony Center were there, excited to see the O'Share expand and take that next step. So it's a great community place. Lots of nice light coming in from outside, which was really, really quite nice. Several other people and companies in town, I'm going to forget them, so I'll forget somebody, donated, steel and paint and time and all kinds of services to get this up and running. And it's a real nice location for those in need in our community, and they'll be able to continue to add more people that they if need be, that they can help with. I'm not sure that I saw a piano there, but perhaps there'll be a piano there soon. The other thing really isn't an event, but staff invited me to sit in with the development team to meet a developer that came to town last week, and it's really fun to see the expertise around the table, from planning to building to engineering to senior managers, city manager, and this person was really impressed when he came in with some questions, to see all of his questions answered right there, present his ideas, have a discussion, get feedback immediately, and I usually don't get invited to those, so it was kind of neat to be there on behalf of council and see how staff deals with people, and it is sending such a positive message to developers that we're open, ready to go, and keen, and that was very clear. I was able to talk, the meeting ended, and a couple of staff members drove this person around to look at different pieces of property that may fit their needs. Over and above, because we've got the knowledge. And anyway, I was able to stand in the front lobby and talk to him for 5 or 10 minutes with staff. We're getting him ready to go and get his feedback, and he was very impressed. So it's we're doing the right thing here, and we'll continue to do the right thing. So I just wanted to share that. I think that gets us through most of the agenda, down to, motion that the committee rise.
Moved by myself, that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
So all in favor? That's carried. So we're back into the formal session. Motion to adopt proceedings.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thomas, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
Great. Thanks. All in favor? That is carried. Next, number 20 is notices of motion. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd just like to give notice that our next meeting, I will be asking for a staff report on the creation of a source-separated organics program, focusing on using an increase in bag tags to fund it, but also providing council with other options for getting a program started.
Great. Thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hereby give notice that I'll move, or cause to be moved, a motion at the next regular council meeting to request the clerk to send a letter to the chair of the Festival of Northern Lights asking for a presentation to council complete with current and updated year-end statements before the city makes their first installment in June 2020. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Unusual. We have two. Ms. Bloomfield, the bylaws.
Through your worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to adopt a policy respecting the procurement of goods and services, a bylaw to amend the traffic bylaw to add an accessible parking space on 3rd Avenue East, a bylaw to execute an agreement with 2523054 Ontario Inc. respecting a second extension of time for payment of development charges for Georgian Landing, bylaw to provide an interim levy for the year 2020 for all property classes, a bylaw to adopt a revised emergency management program and emergency response plan, and a bylaw to execute an agreement with the County of Bruce and its lower tier municipalities and the County of Grey and its lower tier municipalities, save and except Meaford, respecting a community safety and well-being plan.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kepke, that bylaw numbers 2020-001, 002, 003, 004, 005, 006, 007 be passed and enacted.
All in favor? And that is carried. Great, thanks. So that completes all of our business for tonight. It is 8:45, so we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.